Are Justin Trudeau's days as Canadian Prime Minister numbered? Is he about to resign his post as party leader and therefore Prime Minister of Canada, having hit rock bottom in terms of popularity ratings and dragged himself and his party into international disgrace with the United States, with China, with India, and with so many other countries? The Canadian Prime Minister's time appears to be running out because, according to the local media, not us foreign interferers here, local media in Canada says he's about to resign and it could happen as early as today. A series of diplomatic missteps have threatened his leadership, and with someone who despises him, Donald Trump, all set to take over as president across the border in the United States in only days from now, it seems that Trudeau's position has become exponentially untenable. Take a look at this report.
Time is up for Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, a known India beta. Canadian media says Trudeau is all set to step down. But this has not come as a shocker for all. Trouble has been mounting for Justin Trudeau for quite some time now. 20-odd MPs of Trudeau's own Liberal Party have turned against him over misgovernance. Majority of Liberal MPs urged him to step down amid declining opinion poll numbers and public dissatisfaction, compounded by high inflation, job crisis, and increasing housing prices.
He's in the middle of so many crazy scandals that would have broken any other government in any other point of Canadian history. So the fact that he lost as a finance minister and deputy prime minister, where he was firing her from finance minister and wanted to make her like minister of sitting in the corner and doing nothing. And then she pulled the "you can't fire me, I quit" a routine. Now, if he does resign, I'll be very happy. There's this weird scenario where he could resign as leader of the Liberal Party, but not as prime minister, which again is an absolute absurdity. And it's like technically he can do this, but no one ever would. But again, that's the Justin Trudeau way: is no one should ever really do this. You can't do this, but then he does it.
The endgame began after a spat with US President-elect Donald Trump. Trump promised to slap a 25% tariff on all goods entering the US from Canada, pushing Trudeau on back foot. Trudeau's ties with India have been sour over his free run to pro-Khalistan radicals and mobs targeting Hindu temples. Trudeau also sabotaged ties with India after accusing Indian government agents of killing Nijjar, a designated pro-Khalistan terrorist, but failed to provide proof of Indian government role. Throughout his tenure, the Canadian Prime Minister kept wooing pro-Khalistan radicals for votes, hoping they would revive his dying political charm. Canada goes to polls this year, and most recent polls show that Trudeau is facing an uphill task against the Conservative-led Pierre Poilievre. Bureau Report, India Today.
And just look at this menu card of Trudeau's troubles, and he's got no one to blame but himself, make no mistake. Number one, Trudeau's party has turned completely against him. There's a virtual insurrection against him to step down. Number two, 20 Liberal Democratic MPs openly seeking Trudeau's ouster. They've written a public letter against him. There are huge jitters in the Canadian economy, which is experiencing a historic slowdown. Jobs, housing crisis continue to fester in Canada on Trudeau's watch. There is this huge illegal migration crisis. Trudeau's party is trailing in the opinion polls ahead of elections scheduled for October this year. That's why his party is completely panicking, and they want to change the face as quickly as possible. Number seven, rampant gang-related violence, much of it instigated and supported, subliminally by the Trudeau government. Mounting heat from across the border in the United States with the incoming Trump Sarkar, obviously. The looming US trade tariff bad news is something that Trudeau has not been able to navigate well. And record inflation in Canada means that the heat is at Trudeau's doorstep, and he perhaps can no longer no longer tolerate it, and he needs to step away in order to save his party. Joining me now is Canadian journalist Daniel Boardman, who happens to be visiting India at this point of time. Daniel, you know, the obvious question is that, Trudeau hasn't made many friends in the last couple of years. His reputation has been in both domestic and international freefall. But what would you say is the tipping point? Where did things specifically go so badly wrong for him?
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me, and thanks for welcoming me to India. It's nice to be in the same time zone, so this is far less confusing on my end. In terms of, Justin Trudeau, how do we get here? He's in the middle of so many crazy scandals that would have broken any other government in any other point of Canadian history. So the fact that he lost as a finance minister and deputy prime minister, where he was firing her from finance minister and wanted to make her like minister of sitting in the corner and doing nothing. And then she pulled the "you can't fire me, I quit" routine, and then sort of broke the Liberal Party into sort of two factions. And loosely it's said, okay, so Trudeau's faction, and the head of Trudeau's faction is Katie Telford, who is his chief of staff. And she runs a sort of unelected, you would describe as loosely, you could say like deep state or Canada deep province, where it's sort of the unelected power holders who sort of brought Trudeau up in the sort of like the prime minister's office. And those people holding power. And then you have the other faction, which are represented by Chrystia Freeland, and that's like the elected faction of the Liberals. So these are the sort of discontented MPs, and they don't like Trudeau right now, not because he's ruined Canada or any of the stuff. It's because he's sort of sidelined and taken power from them, and he's made their re-election nearly impossible and ruined the brand of the Liberal Party. So they're not happy because their future and the future of the Liberal Party and their political careers are in jeopardy. So with these two factions like openly at odds with each other, and the fact that we have a minority government to begin with, so he doesn't have a majority even with just his own party. So he's dealing with a complete schism in his own party from a minority position where he's just propped up by the NDP. It's a completely untenable situation. However, I'm not 100% convinced that Justin Trudeau is going to resign, which would be for us in India here later tonight when it hits Monday. Now, if he does resign, I'll be very happy. There's this weird scenario where he could resign as leader of the Liberal Party, but not as prime minister, which again is an absolute absurdity. And it's like technically he can do this, but no one ever would. But again, that's the Justin Trudeau way: is no one should ever really do this. You can't do this, but then he does it, and the media covers for him. So it's a very very weird situation in Canada where, and as Trudeau critics, you have to there's been rumors of Trudeau resigning or stepping down before, and I've always taken the "I'll believe it when I see it" approach to this.
Daniel, we obviously on India Today take a global perspective on things, as you know, and we've had so many conversations about Trudeau over the last couple of years, ever since the entire Niger diplomatic spat began between Canada and India. But the obvious question is, what happens after Trudeau resigns, both within Canada and as far as India-Canada relations are concerned?
Yeah, so I mean, what should happen is if he resigns as leader or as prime minister, there should be again, there's this weird thing where I guess he could resign as leader of the Liberal Party, stay on as prime minister, propped up by Jagmeet Singh for another month to get towards his pension, to give the Liberals enough time to hold a leadership election, to throw someone new in there for the election. It's such an absurd thing. Like, literally, honestly, if he does resign as in either thing, it should break the government and trigger an election and do all that. Like, again, we're in such uncharted territory. He's so deeply unpopular. There's so many scandals. He should resign, but he's not. So the Jagmeet factor is, Jagmeet, and it's so clear the Conservative Party is going to win a supermajority. The current projections is the separatist Bloc Québécois, which only runs federal politics in one province, Quebec.
Correct.
They're projected to be the second party in Canada. So that's just how deeply unpopular the Liberals and the NDP are. The NDP, they're really flirting with disaster because the Liberals are projected to be in fourth place, and the NDP is a joke of a party. But they risk, if they continue to prop up this Trudeau government in
Which
the
they
way
have.
that they are doing,
Yeah.
they risk becoming such a toxic brand and associated with all the toxicity over the last 10 years that for the long-term health of the party, they might want to decouple themselves from the Liberals. But again, we're in such uncharted territory. We've never had two leaders like
Too late for
Jagmeet
that,
Singh and
though.
Justin Trudeau before running the country. So I will believe it when I see it. And if he does end up resigning, you're all invited to the party I will be throwing all throughout India. So just come onto the streets of Mumbai. I'll be there, and there will be much rejoicing.
All right, Daniel, welcome to India, and I hope you enjoyed the rest of your time here. But thanks as always for being here and being a very credible voice as we've navigated these Canadian issues. Is he going to resign? Is he not going to resign? We don't know just yet, but we'll be bringing you back here once he does or doesn't, if there's clarity on that. Thanks very much, Daniel Boardman, for being me. I want to bring in India Today's Shashank Mattu as well. Shashank, we've just got that Canadian perspective. Daniel happens to be visiting India at this time, but your sense of how the Indian government is looking at this. At the moment, it's only in the realm of speculation. There are local reports saying he is going to throw in the towel, he is going to resign. So the obvious question is, how do things actually change as far as India is concerned? Can you talk us through that, Shashank?
Right, absolutely. I think the Indian government will also be fairly relieved to see the back of Justin Trudeau and his government, simply because of the fact that his government, and he personally is so tied into the fact that there are tensions with India. He personally put his political credibility behind the allegations that he made in the Canadian Parliament about India's involvement in the death of Hardeep Singh Nijjar on Canadian soil. So he's put his personal credibility behind an allegation like this. So him being in office would have perpetually made an India-Canada rapprochement much more difficult. Now, if Daniel is correct and the Conservative Party does in fact come back with a strong majority, their leader has already announced that he wants a different approach with India. Compared to the theatricality of how Justin Trudeau has dealt with India, he's grandstanded the laws, he's made it a public display between the two countries. Pierre Poilievre has been very, very clear. He's likely to take over as Prime Minister if the Conservatives win. And he said very clearly that, look, we need professionalism when we deal with India. We need sobriety. We need professionalism. This is an important country, an important democracy. We don't need to indulge in political theater with this sort of country. So I think that the Indian government will look at that and look at that as a sign that if we see the back of Justin Trudeau, we see a different government, we see the Conservatives coming, it may take some time, but Pierre Poilievre has already shown that as Prime Minister, he will be willing to work with India. So I think the Indian government will welcome this development, which seems that it should be in the works within the next 48 hours.
And the Indian Foreign Office will, of course, be looking at all of these developments very closely. Preparations on whichever permutation or combination or whatever path the political system takes in Canada, we will be prepared to take those next steps, because India and Canada relations are way, way bigger than Justin Trudeau and what he has done to them over the last couple of years. Shashank, thanks very much for that update.